Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of Tony Talks. This is the 22nd of May, 2020, and this is a special edition, and yes, it is special, as this is the very first panel episode as I invited in a couple of ringers to be on today's program. The whole world has been captivated by The Last Dance, and I said to myself, I needed a couple of guys. I needed a couple of guys I could rely on to give a fresh reaction, to give a fresh take. Some lifelong sport fans like myself who were enamored with those 1990 Chicago Bulls beating down on our New York Knicks, you sons of bitches. So, I got my boy CK and I got my boy Nick the Guru. We had a three-way discussion, and we were able to go over The Last Dance, some football, some topics, and we were a couple of buddies catching up, good times. So, enjoy the show, enjoy the program. Here comes the intro, and don't forget, Tony Talks 8 on both Instagram and the Twitter sphere, and Tony Talks 8 podcast at gmail.com for all your Gmail inquiries. It's time for some sports.
Brand new start of it in old New York.
How much different was it watching this retrospective documentary versus when you were watching it in real time?
The feels are hitting me left and right.
I would
Let's talk,
really.
Chris.
You can't appreciate it the way you would like to when you're a kid, as you do now.
I know.
Even the other night they had Game 6 on.
You watched it, Game 6, the movie?
Yeah, the Game 6, the movie. That's what we've come to. Our feature presentation, Game 6, 22 years later. But you don't realize how great the guy really was. It's not just him too though. Scotty was an absolute monster.
So dirty.
But he played barely played in that game. But watching the series, you see how dominant they were.
Jordan,
It was night and day when they weren't in.
For that era, the era too, it was a slower game, slower pace.
But it was defense and it was mechanics. It was fundamental basketball.
Right.
It was kind of garbage basketball, but
compared to what we're watching now, 100%.
But for him to score as much as he did
without a 3-point,
with less, they had three. Well, he never.
Not that they didn't have it, but it wasn't like his main. No, I'm saying that wasn't his bread and butter.
What do you got in that cup?
Like it is everybody's now.
What kind of guru is this?
Oh my God!
What do you got in that glass, Maggie?
Scotch.
That's a big criticism I hear for how he would translate to today's game. But I say in today's world, he would develop a 3-point shot.
No, I'm not saying he couldn't shoot the three. I didn't.
That's exactly what you're saying.
That's not what I was intending on saying. There's a witch hunt. But again, his numbers he was like Shaq in that same thing. His numbers came inside like not so much the paint. Like Shaq was the paint. I didn't mean bad comparison, but he was inside the arc. Like he was a jump shot monster.
It's a 2-pointer.
He was attacking the rim and he was a 2-point killer. Like the game back then wasn't focused around the
the game wasn't focused on the 3-point line.
Reggie probably kind of was the first guy to really take advantage of that extra point every chance he could. My generation.
I feel like it was a few things. I think it was just guys just constantly doing it. And then I think it was more not sabermetrics, but
the analytics changed it.
Analytics.
They completely eliminated the mid-range game. Everything is either at the bucket or at the 3 line. There's no the highest
percentage
the highest percentage shot is at the bucket or the highest reward shot, the 3-pointer.
Nick, when
you completely eliminate, and not only that, when you're watching this, you see like every team has just this one 7-foot, white guy. Like the Sonics had what the fuck's guy's name? McElvain. The guy. This guy wouldn't. He couldn't play in YMCA now. This guy's got no skills. The
Yeah.
fucking Jazz, they had Ostertag. This guy want to get picked up in a pickup game now.
Well,
You
that's
know?
because the league's
That was just
sexist.
that was the game though. That was the game. They just had these lumbering fucking big guys down there doing nothing.
Yeah.
They don't.
Front court was they were dying by the front court back then. The big man was the way of the game. That's why one of the reasons why Jordan was so.
You got a guy like Brook Lopez, who's become a 3-point shooter. That's all. That's what he's there for. He's there to shoot threes.
Think about the great 7-footers during that time: Hakeem, Ewing, Shaq, David Robinson. That's why Jordan went 3rd overall. Because
you had to have the dominant big man.
Yeah, I mean, even when Jordan got drafted, I mean, like Parrish was one of the fucking best players in the league. I mean, I don't know 100%, but I mean, it was big men dominated.
Yeah,
that's how the league was.
Well, that was the game.
Let me bring something up real quick. Chris, you brought up Scottie Pippen, and then Nick, I think you were going to say did you say they did him dirty?
No, he said he was dirty.
I was saying he was dirty.
Okay, because when
I did hear that Scotty was saying that he didn't like the way he was portrayed, which I mean, I don't think it didn't seem like it tried to take any. I mean, he opened up the whole thing by saying, Scotty was the best teammate I ever had, and if it wasn't him, I wouldn't have those 6 trophies. But Jordan was a calculated motherfucker, and that may also been. I mean, you open this up, and that way at the end, he may not be as mad, but
Yeah, that was something. Yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I brought that up, because when I had the idea to do it today, I was like, maybe it's a little stupid that we're doing it almost a week after the show ended. But then you see all these stories that are coming out. So it's interesting to bring those up. The fact that Scotty, besides them showing how he pushed through on that game 6 with his hurt back and everything, he really didn't come out looking too great in the middle episodes. Besides his episode, which I think was the second one.
And even that one, he still didn't look great. He looked stupid. He looked like he got swooned and taken advantage of. He took an $18 million 7-year deal. I mean, again, in the early '90s, 18 million to shake a stick at. But
I listened to an interview with the guy Sam Smith, who wrote the book.
I mean,
hold
he
on.
was getting paid outside.
Let's go to Chris.
The guy covered the Bulls forever. He was with them day and night during that whole thing. And he said that one of the reasons why he did that is because he got hurt. He hurt his back in like his second season. So he didn't think he was going to be able to stay healthy. So that was another reason why he took that shit contract, was to just get the money. And you see, obviously, the guy had a horrendous family situation. How many people have a person in a wheelchair in their house, never mind 2 of them?
Yeah, it's true. It wasn't I mean, it's pressure. It was definitely not an easy situation for him to say no to it. But, I mean, at the same time, you got to, And then again, I mean, nobody probably at that point knew that the NBA was going to explode the way it did. That's really the only reason he was so underpaid after, like, 2 years of signing that contract.
Yeah,
at that point, the Bulls were the dominant team. People loved them, and Jordan was super marketable. So then all of a sudden the league just exploded, and anybody in a long-term contract at that point just got fucked. But Pippen was the only guy who happened to be a top 5 talent in the league.
Pippen still made more money in his career than Jordan did, NBA salary wise. NBA salary he got because he had a big contract from the Trailblazers.
He also, I mean, he played, I feel like, an extra 5 or 6 years after that 98 season.
Yeah, he was around for a long
Jordan,
time.
I feel like, only played he took that year off and then played 2 more years with the Wizards.
Jordan only had 2 years where he made more than 7 figures.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He had the last 3 years with the Bulls. No, really, only 2
with the Bulls. So I'm talking about with the Bulls.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
He had 2 35, 1 year, $30-something million contracts. Those were the big ones.
Yeah.
Those are
but then he got 2 decent. I mean, he got the contract from the Wizards too. That, I mean, again, wasn't crazy amount of money at that point, but he still got paid more than any other contract he had.
It was part owner of the team.
Yeah. I feel like he took a pay loss when he did that. I want to talk about his Wizard time too later on. Cause I have some interesting notes written down about some time he had with the Wizards. And then
it's not the same thing. It's not Michael Jordan.
No, I was kind of waiting for that.
I want to bring it up. I want to bring it up later. Just Just hear me out. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
All right.
And I'm surprised. You know what I'd like to see them talk about too, which is so things that they missed in the documentary. There was a season, and I don't remember it. When I was that age, I don't remember a lot of the stuff as it was happening. I just remember Jordan being like the greatest.
Yeah, because it's hard to really
100%.
appreciate and understand it when you're that young.
I remember I was in the mall with my dad and my brother, and my brother was Alonzo Mourning. He had the Alonzo Mourning jersey on. I had Jordan's jersey. I was Michael Jordan. My dad had Bobby Hurley. He was Bobby Hurley. So to me, Jordan was always my guy. But
100%.
everybody knew who he was. Like your grandmother knew who he was. Everybody knew he was like
He was commercialized,
Jesus.
man. He was he did Space Jam. He was in McDonald's commercials. God only knows what else he was selling back then. I mean,
Yeah,
he was
I think
pushing a
this thing
lot of
though,
shit.
even before that's probably like last shot era or time frame like 98 when
Probably around
when,
then. It's probably the second three-peat.
when you're talking about with your dad and your brother. But
Like when I was like old enough, because I was still 98. I was 9.
this thing really shows you though, like early 90s, how this guy was like everything. And I never really understood that how much of a cultural icon he really was. Like really much earlier than that. You see, the commercials, the shoes, obviously the biggest thing.
The Dream Team.
The Dream Team.
That Dream Team was
That story about the scrimmage when he became the alpha of the alphas. Like my dick got hard.
the greatest game never
sick.
seen. I remember I think it was ESPN did like something about that. I don't know if it was a mini series or just an hour long special on it, but I vaguely remember watching something about that. It was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's like an hour long thing.
So, and it was interesting too because Horace Grant came out and he was all pissed off about the shit that Jordan said. And he called him a snitch and all this shit, which is kind of fair because he just came out and said everything. But at the same time, and it was weird watching Jordan in that interview say, "Oh yeah, Horace Grant told Sam Smith."
Yeah, he told the reporters.
Just blatantly said it. Not even like give himself like, did
I
Horace?
think it was.
It just was like black and white. Black and white said it was Horace Grant.
Yeah, you know.
But it's like he was. But
that's Jordan.
Whether it was Grant or not, it was like he was snitching on the snitch because all these stories about the team got out. But it seems like it's convinced that it was Horace Grant, which was just weird. And that was it was interesting that first season when he wasn't there, how good the team was after the first three-peat.
Yeah.
And they still had Horace
good
Grant.
As Horace was,
they had Kukoc.
Rodman
Kukoc was very underrated.
Yeah, Kukoc was a beast back then.
Was Scotty dragging them up and down. B.J. Armstrong made an all-star team. I think they show that at one point.
Yeah.
What, with Charlotte or with the Bulls?
No, with the Bulls that year that he wasn't there.
Oh yeah.
And what's weird too is when he's playing baseball, the players' strike is what brings him back into basketball.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
I always thought it was Bill Murray.
Yeah, I did too.
Man.
That was crazy. And the Space Jam on the set with having all those players into scrimmaging every night.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a cool
story.
That's so dope.
See, that's the nuggets that were like really like appreciated, like the stuff that without that show, like it's awesome to see a different like retrospective on like what happened that we all know.
They also say, the guy was shooting a movie for 12 hours, and then as soon as it was over, he's going and scrimmaging against the top
famous.
Top 10 guys in the league, playing for 3 hours. Well,
then
and then they said, that's when he was going to work out and train.
Yeah.
So, yeah. If you remember the end of Space Jam, I mean, that was basically the end of the story. Is they end up playing the pickup game when they get their talent back, and then they make fun of him that he's a baseball player, and the guy ends up in the fucking rocking the 45 2 days later, cutting them all up. So I mean, it's not. I mean, they, You know, they threw a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
reality in a
You
far-fetched teen movie.
I forgot. They forgot to mention that Wayne Knight picked him up in the spaceship and took him back to
No, I'm saying
the
they're
Wayne,
doing
United.
the.
Wayne
the-
Knight.
I'm fixing a debit. No, but I mean, seriously, he was playing pickup games with the same
Yeah.
guys who were on the set.
Yes.
So, I
Yeah,
mean,
Bill Murray mixed in. He was picked up in one of those games. He
I
came
wouldn't
up.
be shocked if he was hanging out watching those games. Guy's a basketball fan. How if you think about it, if you're a basketball fan in the '90s and you see Jordan, Barkley, Ewing, and fucking
So they
Muggsy
probably
Bogues.
told him, Bill, get the fuck out of here. This is not your
Oh,
fucking
I'm
place.
not saying he. Well, Sean Bradley was in the game in the movie, so I'm sure Bill could have fit in to fill that sixth spot. Would have been. I mean, granted, there's 2 feet of distance, but Bradley wasn't anything. There's another old big white guy you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
But
That guy was skinnier than a fucking twig.
so let's go around real quick. Nick, we'll start with you. Go, Chris. I'll go. What was your if you had to pick a moment that made Jordan, and The Last Dance, something that would like transcended what when you saw, you're like, oh shit, like he was like, because we were that young, but to see it from this perspective, it's like it's
So
interesting.
it was more. It was definitely before my time of watching basketball. But that
Sure.
series against the first series he made the playoffs where they barely like that was
From the
like,
show. From the show.
Yeah, from the show. It was the first episode or the second episode. But he was talking about he was hurt and he was trying to get his way back, and they were putting him on the Jordan schedule where he was only allowed 7 minutes per half, and they ended up making the playoffs. They ended up getting the Celtics round 1. They were the 8th seed. And they lost to the Celtics, but I mean the Celtics, that team was just ridiculous. You can't beat that. They have 5 Hall of Famers on the roster. So but the guy ends up dropping 49 in game 1. Barely ends up, pulling this team to try to get to the win. They end up losing. And then all of a sudden, game 2, this guy comes back and drops 63 points and just dominates. And then they still lose. But you just see him, like, plugging away, pulling, carrying this team. And it was just a matter of time before, like that was it. That's when you knew, like, holy shit, this guy knows he's going up against the best team in the league by far, hands down. And this guy will not, that's the moment he lives for. That's the moment he drives for. Like, that's the reason that, in my eyes, Jordan is Jordan. He's got that, like, extra gear, that extra instinct where it's, like, crunch time, like, big game, like that's like
to take on the juggernaut Celtics team.
Yeah, like exactly. Like anytime there was a way for him to hype it up in his head, he found it and he took it and he ran with it and the game showed. Like every single time he turned around and like that was again more broad. I know you asked for more of a specific time, but anytime he turned around, it's like he said this or I said this, and he made it personal. Like I saw
that was a big there was a big moment when they asked him if there's a 10% chance he might never play again. When you take the
and he was like,
Tylenol,
"There's a 90% chance I'll be fine."
He said, if there's a Tylenol and has 1 out of 10 that's gonna be bad, would you take it? He said, how bad's the headache? That was a big line.
How bad's the fucking headache?
CK.
Yeah, but nah, that's that whole little segment of that episode just really like him fighting management and the coaches to be like, come on, like this 30 seconds, like. And I never realized how strict they were. Like there was legit 35 seconds in that game to make it to the playoffs, and they benched him. I can only imagine, like after seeing and then right after that, he then turns around and puts on those 2 performances against the Celtics, which is like, all right, this guy came off this like stint where he was dying to play full games. They were tempering his minutes every chance they got, and then he just came out went bananas. So I don't know. That just summed up Jordan for me.
TK?
Yeah.
Your moment.
A Jordan moment in the documentary was one of your favorites. That made him
That made Jordan Jordan.
Like I said, you don't realize how big he was like earlier than we were, around to see it. And it was when he threw out the first pitch at the White Sox game and wound up saying he was going to retire. And like
baseball.
Yeah, and it's also like the time frame. Also, there's no Twitter and instant news feeds and all that other shit. So the way it was brought out was the guy, who he's actually on like that guy's actually on like
as Nick talks on his bogey.
As that guy is actually on like I think his name's like Pat O'Brien or something. He's like an entertainment guy now. And this guy is like the the sideline reporter for the White Sox, and he tells everybody that there's a rumor going around that he's going to retire, and it like takes over the game. The next day, there's 9 million people. You realize the guy, what a monster he really was. He was larger than life, and then he just walked away.
Yeah,
so that's
that
it.
was the episode I was looking forward to the most.
It was also like even before that when he says when they beat the Suns, and he was like, wasn't even like gratification. It was more like relief that it was over. Like he was wiped out.
Yeah, that was a big and I didn't realize that. I had no idea.
No,
Yeah,
you never realize that fatigue at our age when we were watching that.
You never know about. Well, we didn't for our era. So getting exposed to that and learning these things, those were the shit that I liked the most.
I think for me when he lost to the Pistons in Game 7, and then the team got together
immediately,
and they just were like, "This shit's not happening again."
Yeah,
that was.
And then they came back and swept them, kicked
the shit out of them,
kicked the shit out of the whole Eastern Conference, swept the Pistons, and then they beat Magic in 5. They lost the first game. They lost the first game to the Lakers.
Yeah. Well, that Lakers team was fucking ridiculous too. They didn't show much or anything on the Lakers. I feel like not that they would, obviously.
That was the end. That was the end for them. And then
that was the last hurrah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like they kind of they went into at least the championship. I feel like they talked about I feel like they just glossed over and they beat the Lakers in 5, and that's. But yeah.
No, that's not about the fucking Lakers. It's about the Bulls.
About the Bulls.
Jesus Christ, you too.
I'm just kidding. Sorry. No, but that's a fair point. If they showed how strong the Lakers were, that they were coming off 5 rings, that would have given Magic his 6th ring too. So that's kind of a fair point.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe a fair
Magic
point.
is one of his not good friends, but I mean Magic's a good friend of his, and I mean he was in the documentary, so that's the only reason I said I was surprised he didn't have a little more dialogue during that. I feel like a guy like that, where you got him, he could even turn around and I'm sure there was some gems during that series where Magic would have turned around and be like, I knew right then and there that they'd change into the God type shit. Basically you said with the.
I feel like they had that moment when they were talking about the Dream Team and they talked about the scrimmage, and Magic was like, when Jordan came on the bus and he was like, a new sheriff's in town, and he looked at Bird and they were like,
well, that was a year or two. That was 2 years after they beat him. So I mean,
yeah. But I feel like it was like this kind of like that same moment, just
That's true. It's true.
And then also when they lost to the fucking Magic, and then they're like his trainer, and I got a good point in a sec. Then the trainer's like, when do you want to work out? He was like, tomorrow.
Yeah.
When he lost, and then they go and they break the wins record.
I mean, to jump to, there was that one part, I forget exactly, but he who the player was. It was some older player, back in the day. It was nobody crazy, but he had that really good first half. He said, and or whatever. They played the doubleheader. It was against the Bullets, and the first night he did really well.
LeBradford Smith.
That story's great.
And then they turned around afterwards. He killed him in the second game. The guy held him for negative points. And then they turned around. Did he actually say that? And then Jordan's
36.
Nah,
and then
in the first half.
Yeah. And then Jordan's like, I may have made that up in my head and giggled about it. You know what I mean? So he's doing shit like that. So then when he actually has something slighting him where he got beat, it makes sense that he would go actually absolutely ape shit. The guy made up fabricated shit to get mad about to fucking play harder. He actually had a legitimate beat. Yeah.
It was pretty funny too. It was pretty funny. It was freaking hilarious when, the last two, when he's talking about beating the Sonics and the Jazz, and Gary Payton comes on. He's like, I was the glove. Nobody was scoring on me, and he just looked at the camera and he was like, I didn't have a fucking problem with the glove.
Started laughing.
I mean,
like Thanos.
You gotta. So looking at it from from a existential part, it's Gary's got a point though, because he didn't cover him fully in the first 2 games. They got slaughtered. He did cover him. Gary was a defensive player of the year. I mean,
he was good.
He did actually start covering him from full time in those games. So I mean, I'm not saying Gary's right, but I'm saying I get it from Gary's point of view.
they were in the restaurant, and
Oh, the coach walks in.
George Cole walks in, and
Sorry.
he doesn't talk to him, and he's like, "Yeah, all right, no doubt. We'll see how this is gonna go now."
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
so
when,
stupid. It's a nut. And
He's
then-
nuts. He's
He's
you're
nuts.
not that person without having a fucking screw loose though.
You know what? One of the best memes that
100%.
came out of all this is there's a picture of Jordan. He's like, and that's all the motivation I needed about everything. What was the motivation? 1997. Cole got the MVP. I'm not saying
That's
he
it.
didn't,
That's
he
it.
didn't deserve it, but
that's all I needed.
and
Yeah, that's exactly the guy he was. He was like vindictive about basketball like that. Like he needed the drive, and he would take anything.
here's I wrote this down. And when the flu game or the food poisoning
Food poisoning game, apparently.
When they
Although it doesn't
ordered-
kind of have the same ring.
when they ordered the pizza, and his personal trainer orders the pizza. Why the fuck would he even order a pizza? Go get him something else. He's Michael Jordan. Like the only place
they
I was
said-
open.
Well, no, he said he wanted pizza. He
They're
was,
in
like, craving
fucking
it.
Utah. You should know this now. Living in Texas.
Shut up. Yeah, I would, but still, there's options.
I don't know, man.
There's
That
fucking
story
there's
sounded
halal
fishy.
food cart or bodegas or delis open at 2 a.m. for you to get
Supermarkets.
a roast beef and turkey sandwich.
I don't know, man.
That's
I
a good
have
answer
feeling-
because they're in Utah.
I have a feeling we should call that the hangover game. That story sounded fishy. That story sounded real fishy, man. Come on, they had 5. Sorry, I've delivered pizza for a good part of my fucking life. I've had people take rides with me to deliver the pizza. I would never let them get out of the car. If 5 people walk up to your door with a pizza, I'm not opening my fucking door, especially Utah. If I'm a black dude, I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah, why would they? Well, do you think they made that up?
Like, that's
that
what I'm
there's
saying.
5
Like,
people. Why would they just say
That's
the
what I'm
pizza
saying. I
sucked
feel
and he
like-
got food poisoning?
Well, I don't know. I feel like the way
We
they
got
made
pizza
it-
in
made that
Utah.
a
That's all you
story-
needed to know. I got sick from that.
I don't know. It just sounded weird. I mean, I guess the trainer and everybody turned around saying, "Nah, nobody should eat it," and then Jordan like, "Nah, I'm 3 slices in already." Like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah, you got.
like
you
who
guys
is
hungry?
watching this guy?
Good.
apparently?
Watch me eat.
Yeah, like what's going on? It's retarded.
Uh,
But I mean,
yeah.
again, you know what? I've heard crazy things. I've seen Utah. Like
well, you know what?
was it last
Shame-
year? They were saying that the Utah fans were harassing players using racial
Shame-
slurs. So I
Shame
mean,
on the Jazz. Shame on the Jazz for letting him score 40-something points when he can't fucking stand up straight.
I wonder if that had anything,
losing the game.
not anything, but I wonder if that was part of the motive of Celtic pride. Maybe they took that idea and rolled with it into something funnier.
Probably everything we had
It's
to do with
Utah, man.
this
Utah's in the game. In the movie.
Space Jam or Celtic Pride. They're like
Bro, Celtic pride is fucking one of the classics.
very
Oh, that
underrated.
is-
Very underrated.
Highly underrated.
Damon Wayans at his peak.
So he comes. So they get the win. They had the first three-peat. He goes to baseball, comes back. They get the record for wins. He has the food poisoning game, and then the last of the second three-peat. I didn't know the Pacers put up such a good fight against them.
Yeah.
Hold
yeah,
on,
no,
though. Hold on. But
That
here's,
Pacers team is really good. There was guys on that team that like 3 years later would become stars that we were familiar with. Like,
but you know what though? That series should have been over in 6 because Reggie, that was a total foul on Reggie Miller.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but they weren't calling that in 1998.
I know.
100%. That was 94.
2020
home
that
cooking
he's
Pacers versus
suspended
the
for the next
Bulls.
game, but
He's ejected.
98 they don't call it.
Yeah, no, but I didn't know that pace, and then the Knicks played them the next year in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they went to the finals like 2 years after.
Yeah, that was
That team was
the
around for a
LJ
while.
That was the LJ game.
Yeah.
4-point
Yeah.
play.
So
Yeah.
speaking
Holy
of that,
shit, I
that was
remember that.
that was awesome to see how when the Knicks were actually the Knicks.
I know, it's so cool.
The reason we still cheer for them, yeah.
The fucking Garden was like
You know, my least favorite part of the docuseries. There was a trivia question because they had those trivia questions. They said, "Which Hall of Famer did Michael
did he
Jordan?"
beat the most?
Yeah, it was Patrick Ewing.
It was Patrick.
I mean, they were in
It's
the
like,
same division for the most of their careers. So
There's
Yeah.
one of the only times that Patrick's in it. They're talking about I forgot what game it was.
Patrick
And,
looks bad.
And they were like, what'd you think of that game? He was like, what did I think about it? I think it was the double nickel game. And he was like, well, I played mad good too. And nobody ever talks about that.
Yeah, they asked him if he was watching. He was like, I lived through that shit. I don't need to watch this thing.
See, that was the part I really enjoyed about it, was like the nostalgia, like the little deja vu flashes. Like when they would,
absolutely.
like, show you those clips, and then you like get like a quick flashback of like remembering like sitting in your living room watching that fucking game. Like, shit! Like
I vaguely remember.
Not a lot of them, but yeah, towards the end.
The All-Star game at the Garden.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
The hat was a big thing.
He was the MVP in his last year on the Bulls. He was the MVP of the season.
Of course he was.
It's like nobody does that anymore. Nobody
did. If they were able to keep that team together for another year,
we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk. I'm saving.
All right, I'll hold off on that then.
So they get past the Pacers, and then they win 6. The last shot, all that stuff. It was fucking poetic, which was exactly what my boy Leonardo DiCaprio said. Shout out to Titanic.
That was a cute little fucking.
That was pretty hilarious. Cool. The man with the iron face.
Yeah, that was good. That was so stupid.
Leo's like, nah, man, that's not the name of my movie.
Yeah, all right, no, get the fuck away from me.
It was funny. I don't know if maybe somebody told Jordan he was in the crowd, but then the fact that he did like the all for one for all right before like the game, and then afterwards he happens to see the cast. I mean, again, he probably did just see that movie. That was right when it came out. So
watching Game 6, the movie, it seemed like the Jazz were in control that like whole game.
Yeah, they had a chance.
And then, but the last 40 seconds, Jordan, right, the inbound goes right and scores. You forget about that. Then the steal was like, he pokes the ball away. Everybody missed a shot. But they were down by 3, and then the dude scored 4 points like it was nothing.
Well, again, shame on the Jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you play against Jordan. It's just destined.
I mean, the guy was just so good. And again, that's what I'm saying. Like, he had those moments. He knew when the moment was the moment. Like, look, I'm either gonna make the play or I gotta make the pass. Like, and it's gotta go through me. It's got like I have to have like I gotta make like if it was hockey, I have to get the point. Like I gotta get a point on this play. This final play, I gotta get a point. Either the shot or the pass.
You know what's really cool too is to hear how his peers spoke about him in such high regard, like Reggie Miller, so I call him Black Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Well, that black cat.
I liked more the way the guys on his team talked about him. Like they would turn around and be like, the guy was a miserable fucking prick. And he tortured me nonstop. But then at the end of everything, they would always be like, but he made me better than what I was when I started playing with. Like they realized, like, you know what? He fucking he was on my ass. He was a cocksucker. But he got the best out of us nonstop because you know what? We knew
they were better for it. We were better for it.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not going to shout too much because he's close. My father was a raging asshole, and as a kid, he was a strict guy. I mean, I think I'm a better person because he was strict. You know, I mean, that's the concept of it.
So Jordan was their daddy's.
At that time, Jordan was everybody's fucking daddy.
All right, so now we're at the end of the three-peat, and the unanimous villain from the series.
Krause, that penguin little.
I don't understand how.
I actually respect the guy more than anything. I think he did it. He played it exactly the way he should have every step of the way. He's got to shut his mouth, but I mean, he could have kept quiet or said the right things certain times. But he put this all together. He's the mastermind
for sure. He traded for Pippen. He brought in Rodman.
Well, he became the GM because Reinsdorf owns the White Sox.
Yeah, I never knew that he picked him up from the White Sox as a scout.
Yeah, and the guy basically walks into his office one day and says, "I want to be the GM of the basketball team," and he lets him.
That owner, Reinsdorf looks shot too.
Yeah. You know what it is? I feel like when you're that old and not even old, when you got that kind of money, you fucking end up living in a bubble where you're half in your ass most of the time.
Obviously, Michael was already there, but then he makes the trade for Scotty.
Yeah,
that was
That was big.
That was crazy.
Puts the team together. He hires Phil. You know, he got rid of Doug Collins.
He made all the right moves, but
he obviously knew what he was doing.
But how do you not try to go for? How do you break up the team? How do you tell Phil Jackson if you go 82-0, you're not coming back? How do you?
100%.
Well,
that was a little bit of hubris, I think. I think he got a little cocky and full of himself and thinking, I could put together another team in 3 years.
Knowing who Phil is now, though, too, Phil's also full of shit because he wouldn't have came back if the team wasn't good enough for him to win. He wasn't going to coach them.
But if you
I feel like at that point, a lot of those guys were in that boat.
If you brought back all those players, though, I think he would have came back.
But how would they?
I don't know, George. But, how do you not try? How do you not try?
Because we're in this conversation.
How do you not try? How do you not try to bring them all back?
Because you know what would have happened? And this is the way I think about it. They would have been so far over the cap and into the luxury tax if they would have actually signed everybody for the contracts they would have got the next year. The chance, though, they probably wouldn't have got everybody. And the one guy that they needed to make sure they would have got was Scotty, who was, one, already pissed off at the Bulls organization. Two, was going to get paid a lot more than anywhere else. So if you lose one of those guys, then you're running the risk of throwing all this money away and losing again.
But
the next year was the lockout.
Right.
That's when they changed they put the hard cap in, they put the luxury tax, they put the limit on the 4 year. At the time, it was the 7-year guarantees. They put the contract term limits on it. So all this shit changed. So there was no. They could sit here and they could say, "Oh yeah, we would have brought this guy back, that guy back." Those guys all signed big contracts somewhere else. They traded Scotty.
Krause even said that during the documentary is that these guys were all going to get more money than they would technically worth.
So I mean, they could tell you this shit all they want. That's not the reality of it. But that's hindsight.
But I think too, there may have been. You know how there's like aging players. They'll go to a team to try to win a ring. You don't know if
they probably could have
got some talent
and then filled it in afterwards.
You could have brought. You lost guys, but you may have brought in guys that would willing to take a pay cut to play with Jordan for one more for 7 for heaven.
100%. But then again, you got a team that's got a repeat, and it's
I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's all impossible to say, but I mean, it's just.
Yeah, but while maybe based on those three guys, those role players make a huge difference.
Of course.
What I mean? There's that chemistry you would completely then rupture and like completely discombobulate. So even if you were able to keep Scotty, Jordan, and Rodman, and you just fluxed in new
Rodman was shot. I mean, this guy
my man left in the middle of a championship practice.
I love Rodman.
To go body slam DDP, you know?
Bro, that was probably the most nostalgic part of it is because I'm remembering, holy shit, remember because a week after that, Karl Malone came back, him and DDP were fucking had the tag team match versus Hogan and Robbie. Because that was way bigger than wrestling.
When Goldberg got the spear on Hulk Hogan to win the WCW title in 1998, Karl Malone gave a diamond cutter to some guy outside the ring. And that's the most famous WCW match of all time is Goldberg beating Hulk Hogan. And Karl Malone's that was a week after the finals.
Yeah. I mean, so come on, there was no way that was working.
But I think let's say they bring back most of the guys. That team, I don't think Jordan needed much help to get through that Eastern Conference the next year. The Knicks, I love that Knicks team. But that team wasn't stopping Jordan.
Yeah, but that Pacers
I don't
team
care
from
who
the
else he
year
has
before
on the
got
team.
better.
Huh?
That Pacers team from the year before got better.
I know, but the Knicks beat them. If the Knicks beat them, the Bulls could have fucking beat them.
Yeah, but that was a good Knicks team, man. That was a scrappy Knicks team.
I know, but
it really wasn't. Ewing was so gassed by the end of that fucking.
They didn't even play.
He didn't play. Marcus Camby was the starter.
He was standing on the sideline with his cast on his wrist.
Holy shit!
He got knocked out at the first.
We'll edit that out. We'll edit that part out.
Yeah, thanks. That's fine. No, I don't care. I had my stints.
No, but he was on the team. But he was.
No, I know he was. That
was it. And they traded him for Glenn Rice, and they've
that dumpster fire since.
They haven't won a game since then.
We gained a yard.
How much did you enjoy Ryan? Was it Krause? They because the Jazz's GM at the time was fucking Scott Layden.
Oh my God.
I was like, shit, he built this Jazz team. So, but let's just say they bring most of those guys back. I think they could have. I think they could have. I'm a big believer that you defend it, and then when you lose it, you hand it over.
If you could have kept Jordan and Scotty on the team and then fluxed in more role players, got a big man or something, I think they definitely could have gotten the playoffs. And once they get in the playoffs, then it's Jordan and Pippen.
Oh, CK,
But,
you okay?
Locking in a seventh, I definitely – yeah, looks like he's – all right. Rubbing out a muscle over there.
I had an itch. Sorry.
I think it would have been cool if whether they got knocked off by the Spurs – I think they would have beat the Spurs anyway, though. Honestly,
Obviously,
Duncan's rookie year.
I
think he would have. I think if they would have keep bringing them back, it would have been really awesome to see him lose to Kobe and Shaq. Then you pass the torch to them. That would have been like a.
I mean, but then that would have tarnished it. I honestly,
I don't think it would have.
The Bulls. I think the Bulls were perfect ending it right when. I mean, don't get me wrong. Would have. Because you know what, we get to play the game. What if? But at the end of the day, they ended on the high note. They ended on the end of a three-peat. 6 and 7 years.
That's it.
That's
6 and 8. 6 and 8, Nick. It was 8 years.
No, but I'm with Nick. That was it. It was over. It was done. They can try and tell you all this other shit now. It's not. I said, not reality.
They could have had a run for 7. They may very well have won it. It's fucking Jordan. If they could have kept Jordan and Pippen together and guys, they could have had a shot to win it. But at the end of the day, you run that risk, and then now the team breaks up after losing, and then it's not the same. It wouldn't have had the same nostalgia.
You were saying earlier, all the stories that come out. Well, now the stories coming out. Obviously, you have to take it with the hindsight factor. Is
right.
They were trying to, tank and get. Duncan was the fucking guy they wanted, and then, whatever. And then they wanted to sign McGrady, and they wanted to sign Grant Hill. Then they went to the Baby Bulls with fucking Curry and Chandler. They had Marcus Pfizer. Like they were.
Ben Gordon.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing. They were trying.
I like
to do
Ben Gordon a lot.
So that for them to try and tell you that it was, they would have brought it back. No, they wouldn't. The organization itself wanted to start over.
Right. No, I know. I'm just.
They wanted to restart the clock on another team.
Yeah.
And it just took, it took
still
10 years.
It
took 10 years later when they got Rose.
Rose was the big one.
And they had Rose, Noah, and
dang.
What the fuck is that Argentinian guy's name? He always he played well for them. Doesn't matter anyway. But that, they were done.
Scola? It wasn't Scola.
The Scola was there, but that was not what I'm talking about. It was like
Deng was the third
Kirk
guy.
Heinrich?
Yeah, Luol Deng was there, Heinrich. But anyway, we're getting at it off track there. But for them to try and tell you that they were bringing it back, they weren't. It was never happening. No. They were starting over.
Of course, yeah. I believe that the mind was made up, and that was going to be it anyway. But it's fun to play revisionist history.
Well, I mean, Steve Curry even mentioned it. I think a few other guys, Paxton mentioned it too during the documentary, that these guys used to harass Jerry Krause on it, right? Like, at first it was like good-natured ribbing, but then after a while, like, they would just verbally take shots. Yeah, walk past them. Hey, you fat little piece of shit.
He was smart.
Get out of our fucking section.
He was smart, but he's like a douche.
Nah, like I said, he did it as a GM. He did a great job, but I think Kerr's another one. Kerr's a perceptive dude. He turned around. The guy just kind of couldn't get out of his own way. He was his biggest worst enemy because he just couldn't. He couldn't help not being like the center of attention. He needed to fucking say something that had people talking about him.
If anybody has stock went up from this, it would probably Steve Kerr, because he came out nothing negative really. He was interviewed a lot, and
I never knew any of that shit.
Yeah, that was cool.
that was a tough segment.
And then they're showing at the end, Michael Jordan retired, Dennis Rodman went to the Lakers, Scotty went to the Trailblazers, Phil went to the Lakers. Steve Kerr went to the they're like showing like Steve Kerr's up there with like all these amazing players and all these key figures of the run, and he was just this little role player. And you
Yeah.
could tell,
And
like
wasn't even
he
there
just
a good stretch of the time.
but he just owned his role. He knew his place, and he did a great job. Not a great, but he did his job
He did a
as good as he
solid
can.
job. Yeah.
So
Well,
they
I
liked him.
mean,
They all
there
liked
was
him.
that part where he even said, if it wasn't for John Paxson telling me how to play with Jordan, I probably wouldn't. I probably would have got cut.
So yeah, so I mean, I think we're good on the Last Dance. You guys have any closing words about the Last Dance? It's last words for the Last Dance here on Tony Talks.
My absolute favorite segment was the Rodman episode when Rodman was talking about the logistics of how the
Rodman
way
is
the
an
ball
absolute legend.
bounces.
Jordan
don't
loved
get me wrong.
Rodman too. Do you see when
How could you not?
when Rodman came back to practice after missing everything when he went to
Can we also mention that Dennis Rodman in every
Oh,
non-game scene is in pajama pants?
yeah.
Bro,
What is
Rodman
that?
was still to this day is one of my all-time favorite players.
Oh my
So
God!
I was
So he's
never
in
a great
pajama
basketball player.
pants.
That's
He is-
the guy
he
who
is a
wanted to play
legend.
like. But that one segment, like again, all the shit we know about Rodman, the crazy shit we remember like vaguely seeing in that time, all the shit, him going on random fucking ventures to do whatever the hell he wanted. But like that one segment where he was talking about the legit like logistics of the rebound. If it bounces here,
Oh
I
yeah,
hear
that
this
was
noise.
insane.
If I
That
see
was
it hit
insane.
this side, like all the science of it, and I'm like,
Yeah,
There's the worm.
this is the same guy who's got colored hair, the
Yeah.
fucking rings everywhere,
Right?
banging
Yeah.
fucking porn stars left and right. Holy shit! Like this guy's like holy shit! This guy's got like a real basket. Like obviously the guy is talented. You know, he's got like some sort of semblance of like know abouts in the game, but like the way he like described it was like holy shit! Like there's a science.
This
to
is the
this that,
same.
like,
Yeah,
I don't think I
this,
ever would picture it coming from him. Like
Yeah, this is the same
this
guy.
is like this is like Tim
Right.
Duncan type of stuff, but it's coming from Rodman. Like you know, like
And
that's
you could tell.
Guy said he would be 3:00 in the morning. He'd fucking tell somebody, "Yo, just shoot," and I'm gonna stand here and I'm just rebounding it. I want you to shoot it this way. I want you to shoot it
There
that
you go.
way.
There's another.
Shoot
There's
like
another sign
this.
of a guy knowing his role. Look, I'm a rebounder and a gritty dude. My practice does not consist of me touching the ball. It just consists of you shooting and me going after it and finding out like the rhythms and the the interest
Yeah, Rod.
of it.
You know
Rodman comes out of this incredible.
what I thought was interesting too when Rodman goes to wrestling, misses practice during the NBA Finals, and comes back. You hear
And it
Jordan.
dominates.
You hear Jordan yelling, "Rodzilla!"
Yeah, Rodzilla.
Like
making fun of him.
Like he's making fun of him, but he's like also totally okay with it. He's not mad at him because he knows he's going to come and play, and he just understood like
Well,
It was
let-
that mentality of it. That
let
was
him do it.
when he goes on his vacation, when he tells me he needs a vacation, he disappears for like a month, just so he can go do fucking rage in fucking Vegas, and he comes back in his pajama pants and they show him his pajama pants, and they're doing the Indian runs, and he's fucking lapping everybody,
killing people. That was his like preferred mental state. Was I feel like most people would be hungover right now. I feel great. That and the fact that Carmel Alexa turned around,
Yeah,
like,
of
Michael
course,
Jordan banging on my bedroom door. I'm half naked, hiding behind the couch. I'm like just picturing that in my head,
I feel pretty good too.
What a scene! What a scene!
right? That's out of straight out of a fucking like a movie writer's head.
No movie script would fucking take it.
But Rodman just 100% right though. It was just amazing to see like a dude turn around, and again, he said it a few times. He was in the perfect spot. I don't know a ton, all the other coaches and their actual mentalities, but I know the way Phil is, and I know he kind of differs from a lot of other dudes. But Rodman was in the absolute perfect position because you knew they were gonna, as long as he was able to always make sure he was gonna perform like Phil was understanding, like all right, you're not the prototypical dude who's going to show up.
Yeah, but
that's like you should. But
only Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson.
Yeah, but that's also part of exactly. That's part of Phil. That's Phil being.
That's what
Phil.
I'm saying. Like that's why Rodman really ended up in the perfect position because I don't think any other coach would have ever tolerated that to the point where like, yeah, you go ahead, take, don't come to practice, but then when you come back, we'll let you play in the game. No
Yeah,
other
but
coach
that's
is going
all.
to do that.
Any prominent player that ever played for him says the same thing. Like he just knew how to reach you. He knew how to handle you.
Yeah.
Shaq says it. Kobe said it. Jordan says it. Obviously, Dennis fucking loves him. It's just who Phil was. Phil
The
had
Zen master.
yeah. Phil was the Zen master.
I mean, the guy brought a unique personality to the game where we're still talking about him no matter what as one of the best coaches of all time. And again, we talk about it, especially in football. You talk about he's either a player's coach or he's like a demanding coach, like one way or the other. And then he has these results and he has these results. Whereas Phil was able to be the player coach, but still getting that disciplined mentality result, type of
yeah,
shit.
he just knew how to connect and reach.
All right,
Teach.
let's we're looking at let's look at everything now. The NBA, ESPN recently had the top 74 players of all time listed. Much debate has been astir. Okay, I don't know if you guys saw Paul Pierce's segment where he
No.
listed his top 5. He left LeBron off his top 5. And I'm just
All
curious.
right.
I want to.
I have no regard for him to begin with. So now I
Yeah,
just
think,
Paul Pierce
honestly,
is definitely not somebody.
I think he's
further
Ja do?
disregard him.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I think he's
we don't get a
hilarious
question now.
because he's not even
Yeah.
It's not even to be taken seriously at this point with the shit that he says. He's just a funny commentator. But I'm curious to see what would you guys be willing to put a top 5 of the top? I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, and then I want to talk about NFL real quick. If you want to talk about that, then we could wrap it up. Okay, you guys go with that?
Yeah,
Hey man, I'll talk to you all night. I got nothing to do.
So, CK, you want to start? Do you want to put a top 5 out there? NBA greatest players, and just to kind of give us a retrospective of this whole thing.
Well, am I talking about just guys I've seen?
No,
Overall, man, you're greatest
since the
top
80s,
5.
top 5 since the 80s, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going deeper than the 80s, with the exception of maybe Wilt. I don't think I know a name. Actually, no, that's a lie. That's a lie. I actually recently met some dudes from the 60s and on the Knicks.
Nick, do you want to go?
Look, Chris.
Okay.
You thinking about it? You don't actually have the list already? I'll go then.
I guess it would be Kobe, Durant, LeBron, Jordan. Those are 4 easy ones.
And Allen Iverson, number 1.
In specific order?
And Duncan. There you go, 5.
That's a good list. Off
Yeah,
the top of the dome. How about that? You have Jordan 1?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what was the order of that 5?
There's 5.
There's 5.
Yeah,
Jordan's
they
1.
vary. All right, that's fair.
Nick?
Yeah, I gotta go. Definitely Jordan number 1. I'm gonna skip 2, but I'm gonna have to throw LeBron in there at 3 as much as I don't want to. I will probably say Magic 2. I mean, again, I definitely didn't see enough of him, but from what I have seen of him, I mean, the guy was able to cover all 5 positions on the court. He literally was magic with the ball. He was fucking dirty. 4, I had to say Shaq because, again, there's nobody ever stopping that dude. And then 5, Duncan. And I'm going to throw Kobe at 6 as honorable mention because I really always want him in my top 5. But in reality, and we're talking actual top 5, he's not there yet. Not that he's not there yet, but he's not there. I think in the way, I think it really comes down to the fact that, don't get me wrong, I'm probably one of the biggest Kobe fans ever, but his game was Jordan's game. So, I mean, it was just, and
Exactly.
as great as he was and as amazing as Kobe was all those years, and he won his 5 rings, he's a poor man's Jordan. So, I mean, that kind of, it's tough to, I know, maybe bad phrasing, but it's tough to put a guy who's emulating somebody else already in that top 5 in the same top 5. Like, there's no other Magic Johnson. Like, people, I heard one dude say that fucking Simmons could be like that Magic Johnson type because he's so good with the ball and he's big and has that size. But I don't think he could ever actually be a Magic Johnson because he doesn't have that gene.
I think it's
I that was more like a prototype type of comparison.
I think it's
But
interesting. It's interesting to note too. A lot of because you said Kobe was Jordan light, we'll say.
Yeah.
And they talk about how if Jordan would have been able to play today, how he would have done, blah, 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 whatever. But the NBA is so shaped based on what Jordan did.
100%.
The NBA is not the NBA today if there's no Jordan.
Well, like we said earlier, it was center-centric NBA before Jordan came. Jordan revolutionized to the point where we're now, 20, 30 years almost away from when Jordan got drafted. And we're at the point where centers are almost an extinct position in the league.
Yeah,
power forwards are done. If you're not, you just got to either be a 6'10", shooting forward that plays power forward, basically. And if you can't shoot as a center and handle the ball, you're not a center.
You can't shoot. If you can't shoot, it doesn't matter what position you play. You don't play now.
Yeah, basically. You got to be able to play at least 3 positions in the NBA nowadays. Jordan, I think would still dominate. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's denying that. If he was drafted this next coming year, I think he's still an MVP candidate going forward.
Absolutely, that was the Wizards stuff I had written down to kind of prove that he'd be able to play whenever, because he played against T-Mac, he played against all these guys, and he tore his meniscus his first year with the Wizards, and before he tore his meniscus, the Wizards had 19 wins the year before he got there, and they were 26-21 before he got hurt. And they were in the middle of the playoff race, and he was averaging over 25 a game.
That was a really good young team too. They had Rip Hamilton and they had Rip
one
Hamilton.
guy.
They had Rip Hamilton and Gilbert Arenas. So I'm saying.
No, they didn't have Gilbert Arenas.
Yes, they did.
No, they did not. They did not have Arenas. Let's get straight from whiskey. Scotch and whiskey back or something.
They were definitely teammates on the Wizards.
No, he wasn't. Gilbert Arenas was on the team. Rip Hamilton was on the team. Kwame Brown.
Maybe I'm just getting Rip Hamilton then. I'm going to have to Google this.
Yeah,
one.
no, it's fine.
I think you're just ripped Hamilton.
But I just think the fact that he was able to average over 25 when he took all those years off, but he ended up averaging 23. But he tore his meniscus, and the Wizards were in the middle of the fucking playoff race. They were like number 5 seed before he got hurt, and they still went from 19 wins to 37 wins, I think. And he was playing with those guys at the very end of his career. So I don't want to hear nonsense about him not being able to play with the athletes today.
That's a non-argument for me.
I don't think the guy would have
scored 50 fucking points a night.
Again, think about it this way. We're talking about, his game now would torch teams because we just said there's no real centers. There's no real big men. They can't play physical in the paint. He would just eat now. He would just be cutting at the perimeter and just driving nonstop.
That's true too. Yeah,
and he would just be devouring guys because there'd be no friction on it. Like, think about how good he was. Imagine if he wasn't, like, don't get me wrong, and I know they still, like, while it was crazy physical in the 90s and 80s, they were still calling fouls. But that helped them get a lot of, like, points too. But think about, like, how many calls back then would now be like flagrant, and like they wouldn't even think of fucking throwing like 4 on other guys midair. Like, so, like, the amount of abuse he took back then, now he would just be fucking skating through. He would average fucking probably 20 free throws a game now.
Yeah, no, I think he's one of those guys that transcended generations, and made the league, helped.
99 text messages.
99 text messages for Jenna coming through over.
I thought that was calls into the podcast, man.
How do you hear me?
Get the hell out of here.
No, it's fine. Make sure you respond, though, because then probably get those triple digits. You don't want that shit. That's too much.
I just put my phone down for a minute.
I'm going to pause for a second and grab a beer.
All right.
I could hear you.
I know.
Feel free to talk.
Oh, he's got the AirPods on. That's right. What do you guys think of football season coming up? CK, you like what the Jets did the offseason? You like the Mackay? What's his name?
I'm not crazy about it, but I do like what he's done. Obviously, he's taking care of the quarterback. Have to.
I liked it.
Who'd
They're,
who'd you have taken? CeeDee Lamb.
it's not even it's not even about taking the skill position player. It's if you're at that point and you're looking at this guy who nobody fucking knew before he ran 5 flat 40. Doesn't matter how big he is. What lineman is running 40 yards down the field? So
I know. Yeah, I didn't really get all that, but did he look?
but anyway,
I don't like the
but
combine
if you're
for.
if you're if you're at that point and you have a guy like that and you have an Iowa tackle who everybody loves, you know exactly what the guy's going to be. The guy's going to start for the next 8 years minimum. You got to just take that guy. But
They drafted. I like Becton's potential. I think he's got the most potential, but I definitely don't think he was the most NFL ready.
The guy's got to play from day one, though. He's got to be the day one
no,
starter.
I agree with that
So,
about Wirfs.
He's
Wirfs is definitely 100% going to be a starter for the next couple of years,
I'm
barring
not-
injuries.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think they're going to be all right. I would like them to get one veteran receiver, but we'll see.
Is there anybody out?
Some guys out there, but nothing that's earth-shattering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing's going to change the game on you.
Nick, how do you think the Cowboys look?
I like that draft, to be honest. I mean, it's always nice to get a good receiver. I think at this point, you kind of basically just put Dak in. You have no choice. You're on a franchise tag. You either win get us to the Super Bowl, win us the Super Bowl, or you're looking at a new team next year because you haven't done anything to warrant the contract that you're fucking requesting. I don't understand where this guy. I get it. This is the market that quarterbacks live in now, and they should be making crazy amount. You haven't done a goddamn thing in this league other than start when you were a 4th-round pick. You know what? That was adorable the first year, but now it's fucking 4 years later, 5 years later, it wears off very fast. It's not, wow, you know what? He was a 4th-round pick and he's starting for the team and he played really good in a few games. Yeah, it was great in the first year. Maybe even the second year we could let that ring. But now it's, look, you've had a really good fucking team around you. The defense was played out of their mind compared to what they actually should have played. Like on paper, the way you performed last year, the defense was overachievers. They got a great offensive line and a very solid run game. That all you got to do is be consistent. Don't turn the fucking ball over and make the throws when we need you to make it. Part of it is, in my eyes, in the past fucking 10 years has been Garrett. He's a cunt. He's fucking inconsistent, and he's always going to try to protect himself and not. Don't call the play that's going to cost us the game. Let's just try to manage it into a loss.
Yeah,
like,
he sucked.
he drove me nuts. Now we got McCarthy, who's another guy I don't think is honestly a good coach. I think he skated on the fact that he had Aaron Rodgers as fucking quarterback. But again, it comes down to Dak. We need him to either fucking step up and be a quarterback and like a legit starter, or he's gonna then continue his path as a fucking basically as a mascot. Oh yeah, again, I was a late draft pick and I overachieved all the expectations and I'm a starter. Like at this point, I wouldn't even give 2 fucks. I let Dalton take snaps. Dalton's a
You got to start
yeah.
Dak. You got to.
No, 100%. But I'm saying like if it came down to it, I loved it. I think the Dalton pick was probably one of our best picks. Period. Because at the end of the day, too, we still don't know if this guy decides whatever the fuck the season's going to start. Yeah, if he decides he wants to hold out in training camp. What are we supposed to, it's not like it's Zeke where it's like, oh, we're out our running back for the first 4 weeks of the season. It's your quarterback. First off, if your quarterback's holding out, he's not there for the team. How the fuck is the rest of the team ever going to rally behind him? So, like, what I mean? Automatically, if a quarterback ever holds out, that's just a bad look. Your team's done. You're not winning anything that year. There's no way guys are going to then fight for you the rest of the year. Even if they understand and they get it, like, oh, no, he's fighting for his contract. At the end of the day, like, guys are realistic. Like, look, I want to win. I'm getting paid. I get it. You think you deserve this, but why? Why? Like, you know what I mean? When you could actually ask him, turn around, like, why the fuck do you think you deserve that much?
You can't. I don't think you commit. Like, they didn't make the playoffs.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You can't even carry the team to the playoffs. You shouldn't be getting more than.
He's had good
mil.
numbers most of his career, but if you actually watch him, I watch him every week. If you actually watch him, the majority of his fucking numbers come when either we won the game or we lost the game. His numbers are garbage time numbers. The majority of his numbers are padded. It's like,
Oh,
oh,
they
wow,
have
the
these.
Cowboys are down.
They're good. I mean, they've had some.
No, don't get me wrong. He's been productive. He's had games where he's like, holy shit, this guy could fucking win a Super Bowl. And then he's had games like, how is this guy our fucking starter? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's inconsistent, and that's really an issue. And then again, part of it is also the play calling. They play this They played for the past 2 years this conservative, like, oh, it's 3rd and fucking 19. Let's just hand it off. Like, throw the fucking ball, man. We got Cooper. we just went and spent the 1st-round pick on Amari Cooper. We got this guy Michael Gallup. We got guys who make plays. Like, throw it up. Let's see what happens. We're losing by 12 points at this point anyway. It's the 4th quarter. We lost. We are expecting to lose now. Just
All right.
I know. I'm red in the face. You can see it. Jesus. These cheeks weren't as big as they were earlier. It's a bad angle for me.
All right, let's close on this note with the NFL right now. Talk about Super Bowl picks. Top of your dome. Hopefully, this season goes
I was
smoothly.
gonna say, we got to get a season before we get a Super Bowl, but I don't know, man.
Coronavirus wins.
Beats us
Coronavirus by shutout. Covers the spread.
COVID
Nice.
plus 2.5.
Tony Mac.
COVID-19 with a 19-point lead on everybody else.
And COVID-19, the rest of us 0.
All right, then how about so I could do that. If you
So
first,
yeah, no,
first you could do that, or you could pick who's your first pick if you had the first pick in fantasy.
I'm going
McCaffrey.
with Christian. Yeah,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
I just rolled that motherfucker to
I
two
guess he's-
championships. I'm going again.
I guess he's the consensus.
Yeah, I mean the guy was just even as a dude who like you look at him and you see what like you expected out of Reggie Bush, like where you didn't expect him to be able to run in and out like because he's a receiver like kind of in college, and then all of a sudden he comes in the league and he's taking inside handoffs and cutting people up like he was dicing up middle linebackers in the middle of fucking traffic, like just I'm gonna go here now. Like he's amazing. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's good.
He's a white Barry.
So white
With the
Barry.
Well, again, with
His
downgrading
receiving
black to white,
skills. His receiving skills.
he's got soft hands, man. The guy knows how to catch the ball. He knows where to be.
CK. And he.
No, we should do a fantasy. If we actually have football, we should do a fantasy. Bring the panel back. The Guru, CK, and Tony Talks.
I love it. Tony, I'm always available as a guest, especially these days. I got nothing to fucking do, and I like to talk, especially give me a couple of scotches. Yeah, I'll talk all day.
Yeah, no.
I
I think
sound
at this
like a
point,
coherent.
I think at this point, if people have made it this far to the episode, they'll agree with that statement.
Before we do hang up, though, I think we need to get into a Tony reminiscent mode where we each talk about our favorite Tony Mac moment of our lives.
Oh God.
I mean, come on, you're the host. It's your show. I
No.
think all your guests should always, especially since your guests are, endearing and known you for a long time. I think we should all get to blurt out our favorite moments. Oh
If
wow, my
that's-
headphones just died.
If that's something you want to do, I could always edit it out later. No, it's what it's. I mean, have at it if you know. Do you have something you want to bring up? Is that why you have something you're gonna make me look like an idiot?
No, not entirely.
I don't care. I don't care.
No, actually, it works out because it actually very closely ties all of us. But one of my favorite moments of you is actually probably one of the first times me and you ever really became close. Was this fucking idiot's his going away party before he left for the Navy, and when we hung out in Oakwood and you got
Oh yeah.
bomb, and it definitely wasn't the first time you drank, but it was in your earlier drinking years where you drank way more than you should have, and you were obliterated that night. And there was some blurbs that you shouted out that was fucking gold, man. And I just, that was always one of the things I always remember about you. Again, that was one of the first times me and
CK's
you
going
ever
away
personally,
party.
like me and you knew each other before that, but that was one of the first times we actually met out.
Yeah. How old? How? I must
He
have been.
was
I must have
a
been like
senior. You had to have been a sophomore.
in high school.
Yeah,
Holy shit.
probably back with your big ass curly fro.
Well, probably was a little bit after that because you left. Probably like during that summer, maybe. When did you would
May?
know?
End of May. Yeah, it wasn't too far after like the end of the school year. Even if it was during school too.
Oh
I was
my
gonna say I
God.
still got the pic.
Jenna,
I got the
get
picture
the-
from that night. All right, we're gonna.
See, this is why we're not doing this.
Ooh, glove save. God damn, I got really good reflexes.
See, there's a good
Here's
one.
Librero all the way to the left. All right.
I need some
We
pictures.
were
I don't
all
have
a
any
bunch of
pictures.
we were all a bunch of pieces of work.
Why
don't
am
even know how.
Why am I to the side?
Because we were calling. Because you were
What am I
hammered. And we were
doing?
calling you for 20 minutes. To, like, Librera, get in the fucking picture. I'm talking over here. You were talking to a tree. I'm being serious.
Yeah, I know. I remember that picture.
Where's Nick?
Again, I'm sorry. I'm here. I was going to put the bit. Is that Chuck's truck?
Look
What was
who's
I
on top.
doing? Why am I on the roof?
That was the night. You
That
were
was the
Bob.
same night.
I didn't
Good
handle my alcohol well then.
No, we were all young. We were also chugging beers. I think that was like the first time we ever touched the funnel. We were literally slamming a 36 pack. Like literally, I think we finished this 36 pack in record time on Kissam Beach or wherever the fuck we were. That was all in the Oakwood Dead Ends. Good times, man.
Those are good. Yeah, those are. Yeah, I vaguely those memories of like they like vague.
I drove
Recollections.
I was aimlessly driving last weekend, and I drove around neighborhood around Noodle, and I was just like drove by the park and like by Izzo's house and like all the fucking stops, Titus and Eno, all the way down Roma. Yeah, all the checkpoints. Exactly. Just reminisce like like I was with my girl. I was like, yeah, this is the first time I ever got a summons when whatever the fuck that kid's name was. It was me, you, and Jay when that kid threw the rock through the window and that whole fucking ordeal that night. Do you remember that?
No.
Jesus Christ, that was so good. But yeah, just basically roaming around Noodle. But like, yeah, I remember that. Here happened here. This went over here. Yeah, we did that. This is where we ran from the cops. This is where we used to hide. Like,
I remember when Stefan brought me and Joe to hang out for the first time in like a long time. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I want this?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're gonna say.
With Josh. Stefan walks in with me and Joe. All you hear is Josh say, "What'd you bring the snitches for?" Oh, good, yeah.
oh man.
Good night.
Jenna's apartment.
The white Hummer.
That's a good note to close out. Unless you guys want to, unless there's
It'd be
anything
a
else
good
you guys
ending
want to
note
bring
to
up.
reminisce.
CK, you
I
got
got-
anything
Tony, I
else?
love you.
I got nothing for you, Tony. I enjoyed this greatly.
No,
Tony, I love you. Thank you for having me.
it was awesome. It was awesome. We got to do it again. This is the first panel, and I love you guys.
Hey man,
All right,
let's make
Tony.
it. Let's do it whenever you want. I'm always around.